Hello, hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Doing great. Hi, I'm Michelin Hall, and this is Joshua Carter.
And welcome to Black in the Berg.
So, Black of the World presents Black Art Matters, and we're so excited to get ready to have an awesome conversation with the phenomenal Christina Davis.
Absolutely. And before we do, there's some people we need to shout out because there's been some really cool stuff happening in the Berg. We have Janice Atkins Benahan, who just won the Lottie Stratton Award for Theater and the Community. So shout out to her.
Absolutely. Shout out to Leslie King of Black in the Berg for making this possible. And also shout out to Blackwater Brandon for also supporting this event. We're just really excited. And I think we're ready to get started. You ready?
Yep. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
All right. So, Christina, hey, friend.
Hey, hey.
How are you?
It doesn't feel like it's Christmas, but I'm more excited about Thanksgiving. But, both of them are right around the corner, so I'm starting to feel that already.
Yes, I'm hyped. I'm so hyped for Thanksgiving as well. And we're just excited to be able to talk with you today. And, like, just even in this venue, just to be able to connect with other Black artists here in our region and just to hear, just from your own heart and your mind. Because 2020 has been a pretty big year for you. So
Yeah.
let's talk about your 2020 in the arts, and we'll just go from there, Christina.
Oh, it's like writing your own biography almost. It just felt like fingers were pointed pointed at me is how I felt like as an artist. I had plenty to say. There was a lot to respond to, I feel like. So it's kind of hard not to feel the pressure to make something. And I definitely had like artist block for a minute. But I definitely, with the recent events of this year, you just couldn't be quiet. There was just so much going on, so much to speak about, to feel, to take in, especially, as an African American woman, especially this year. So I definitely felt my creative juices getting just inspired by so much going on in this city and also just in Richmond and DC and everywhere. It was just really hard to not be a part of it, to not say anything.
Absolutely. And I have a question. Can we go into your process a little bit or about your beginnings? Because if you don't know Christina Davis, you're missing out. You're just missing out. And we had a conversation earlier about this idea of visibility, but you're selling art in Greece. You're selling art in California. You're selling art all over the place, and you've been on People Magazine and everything. So, like, if people don't know, they're missing out. But I want to go back to the beginning. I want to go back to that first moment that Christina Davis said, "I'm going to do art." And what was that like? What's that like?
I always like to, think artistic and everything like that. It's a characteristic. It's something that makes you you. And I feel like I felt that in my bones from a little kid. And I guess my mom, I would have to thank her for being able to tell me when exactly I became an artist. She said, oh, it was showing real early. But I definitely always was like a self-taught artist. I was always seeking creative ways. I wasn't a singer. I did not know how to do piano keys. I was not, It was not my magic. But my mom always told me, like, from the second I got a crayon in my hand and when I got introduced to paint, she's just like it was meant to be. And I just kept going for it. There wasn't a lot of art in school really, other than like an elective to kind of introduce you to appreciate art, but not to grow as an artist. So I feel like a lot of artists were self-taught because there wasn't just like, you couldn't pay like $150 to take a drawing class if you're in elementary school or middle school. It's a very expensive route to becoming an artist. So I felt like, local art festivals on EC Glass Lawn was where I connected with a lot of artists, and I just, really growing up in the area and just getting to know local artists and just growing through what they were showing and just teaching myself, going on YouTube, finding books at the library, and I just kept going for it all the way through high school and college. I just kept finding opportunities to just keep growing as an artist. But I feel like art was definitely something that has brought me joy. I don't think I was seeking it to even make a career out of it. I totally wanted to be a veterinarian when I was 8. So I definitely went a whole nother journey than what I was actually planning to do. I loved math and science, but art decided to take its own form. And as most artists will probably tell you, opportunities just kept popping up, showing up like, hey, can you do this? Can you create this? Would you love to be a part of this? And I just was one of those people who decided to say yes. You always hear all these people are just like, oh, I decided to say no because it might be too hard or it was difficult. But I love the challenge. I wanted to find ways to shine at something that I felt like was really me being able to speak from my heart and to really show my style and identity, which wasn't always easy. And I definitely told some people I kind of felt like I was trying to find my voice through my art. And eventually I got it. But it definitely was a journey that I didn't know where I was going to end up with it. But it felt really important to me. And I just didn't stop.
And I think that's really cool because you said YouTube. And I know a lot of people in a lot of communities, they use education to separate who's valid and who's not. And I've hit that on the other side in performing arts. But that was encouraging to know that your pursuit of art doesn't have to be formal. It can get there, but it doesn't have to be formal.
And that might not be the first opportunity that even greets you. I told a lot of like my students, I told them the formal comes later. You got to be doing things for your family first. In our family, it was like an honor to be painted. It was something really special to have because no one, I mean, you fought presidents, you know, you went to Thomas Jefferson's house, you saw paintings. It meant someone was important. When someone in your family paints you and you have that, the first people who give you confidence are them. And then your friends get your artwork. And that confidence is really important when you're an artist. You definitely are your worst critic and the hardest critic that you have. And so family and friends really are your first patrons. And they're really important to have that because I feel like they help you instill that confidence in your identity and what you're putting out there before everybody else, you know. You love having everyone else that you meet along the way, but it definitely started with friends and family. I give them a ton of props and credit for that.
So speaking of friends and family, so I've known you for a few years now, and I feel like I've met a number of your siblings like randomly, and like all of y'all are like super creative in like very different ways, right? And all of you have told me that I've met have really attributed that to your mom and like kind of her creativity. So I'd love to hear about that because I know for me being an artist, like I was kind of like encouraged in the arts, right? But I wasn't necessarily encouraged to like make a profession out of it, right? It was more like an encouragement so I could be cultural, so I could express myself or whatnot, but not necessarily like, I want you to make this a career and I'm totally going to be okay if you do that. But your family is like, so like, I mean, y'all are all like crazy talented. So I want to hear about your mom and the familial support and like what that was like.
And I feel like, you know, most people who meet my mom, especially this is where I get my volunteerism from her work with like the YWCA, the YMCA, and just being that teacher spirit that she's always had. And she just always just was like, oh, we don't know, we'll find the answer. And I feel like she was just one of those moms that was just like, I don't know everything, but I'm going to find it out for you. And she just kept picking up things and sharing them with us. She ended up just making it some bonding time, really. It wasn't about just the fact that she was homeschooling us, which she did for all 7 of us, but she also put in us this love of research. Like going to the library was something you saw us jumping up and down about. I mean, we picked up books about robotics. We built a Gundam helmet for the fun of it. I mean, she put that in us at such a young age that I feel like even though my siblings and I are in IT, they went and they're engineers, they love building things all the time, but she put that in us at such a young age, and I think it just showed itself in a very creative way because it didn't stop. I feel like she definitely probably had intentions to maybe help us get to college, and I don't think she knew that she taught us way more than that. And definitely always makes me happy to say that because being a teacher now, it just made me so happy because I never knew I was going to be a teacher when I was younger. Like I said, I thought I was going to be a vet, but I ended up loving that spirit my mom had, and I ended up following right in her footsteps and ended up loving to be able to share anything I learn. And even today as an art teacher, that's like my favorite part is being able to share something I'm so familiar with, but seeing that joy inside of a kid's eye that first time they see a shrinky dink shrink in the oven, or the first time I show kids how you can completely build something out of paper and make it completely 3-dimensional. And that magic in their eye, I recognize it because that's what she gave me. at such a young age. And I think especially as a single mom, I think she was trying to find ways of putting joy in our life so that way it didn't seem so hard and to give us something that we could enjoy. Because I definitely think as a lot of single moms probably agree that they're just like finding activities that are really just trying to make sure you have friends around and just a lot of like extracurricular things to do to help you get to 5 p.m. until they get off of work. So I definitely realized it was probably because of her busy schedule too. But I think if you're not someone who likes sitting in front of the TV and you like being so hands-on, is probably why we're just very any and everything we can paint in the backyard to inside of the house. We were just very into making things from a very young age.
That is awesome. So Joshua, did you have anything else before we wanted to segue right into her Make Waves mural? Because I don't want to like leave anything on the table.
Okay. Well, the thing I wanted to ask, because we're talking about your identity with family, and it was important that your mother gave you something that you're using today to express yourself, another piece of you to find identity. We talked about, and this might go into the Make Waves mural, Blackness. And as an artist on the other side of the aisle, like I'm in the performing arts, there's this need for society to stamp Black before me, right? And so do you find it an challenge to take Blackness out of your identity? Do you want to be seen as an artist, or do you use your Blackness to kind of catapult yourself forward?
Oh, I would definitely tell people, especially at the recent events this year. And I feel like I've spoken on this so many times with someone's like, "Oh, you're new to art," and I'm like, "No, no, I've actually always been here." I said, "You just weren't listening and you weren't looking at it." I said, especially if you look at Instagram and everything else, it's what's trending right now, which is good and bad. There's definitely merits to that right now because we do have a platform and hopefully everyone is using that to show all the positivity, all the beautiful things about their culture, about our identity in a way where how unique we are with the way we express ourselves through art, especially since a lot of female Black artists, we are mixed media. We have our hands in multiple mediums. We don't find ourselves doing one thing. We are a jack of all trades when it comes to arts. That goes from quilting to the way we dress to the colors that we have in our house. You know, art stretches usually to way more than just one part of your life. So I definitely, yes, can agree that, Blackness is just something that's always been there. But I definitely, especially with my mural in mind, that Black Girl Magic moment for me at 16, realizing that I was beautiful was a huge moment. I definitely was growing up still with a lot of people actively saying, one, that art wasn't a job. And I don't know why, because it's everywhere. It's the silliest thing I've ever heard. I always tell my kids, art isn't everything. You have design in everything. And then the second worst one was, your curls will never get you a job. And those both stuck with me. They were definitely hurdles that I felt like was what I was trying to overcome as a teenager and should never have been going for. I feel bad for anyone who can share that story too, that those were things you were hearing growing up when you're picking colleges and things like that, that you're still growing up amongst people who make you try and feel ashamed for being African American. Especially, I am American, but I feel like I'm Barack Obama some days, that people are going to ask me to show my birth certificate and prove that I'm from America. And that's sad, but I feel like that's because we're used to one perspective. We read history from one person's point of view. We study culture about one or two or three of the favorites, and then we don't need to know about the rest. And I feel like that was part of the problem. And so being a teacher, it's definitely been an honor because I feel like a lot of my students are able to see, oh, well, there is another way of doing this. And, oh, here's another perspective. And this is new to me. And that's a really nice privilege to have because it's not about blinding out all the other colors. It's about seeing them all. And why are they not equally on a platform where you can reach them? I definitely was one of those kids where I was like, you shouldn't have to have movie stars to look up to when there's such amazing people in your community and they should be reachable.
You should say that again. Say it again. That was good.
I don't know. You really have to say it, but I always tell people, everyone I know that you keep saying is amazing. Yes, I've seen Michelin's work. I said before it was outside. I was like, she was amazing years ago. I'm just glad that you know it now. And I would say that about a lot of Black artists, that I was just like, they have been here. They are just now being heard the loudest, though. And it's the first time for everything, but it's a good moment in history, I feel like, because I think people do need to realize that perspective, having other angles, and just celebrating all that America has to offer is a really nice tune to be singing for right now. And it might be because it's just trending, because of recent events, and maybe it's because we've been triggered right now, but I feel like it was a necessary hurt in order to bring about a change. Not all change comes from easygoing conversations. I definitely am glad to see the conversations are being brought up of why is it so nerve-wracking to come in a room and someone says, oh, you're Black or something, like it's something you need to like hide, or oh, we can't talk about that. I definitely hope, especially with my artwork, I'm always welcome to anyone who wants to talk about race or learn anything about my background, because I'm not ashamed, and I don't feel as if anybody else should be. I don't think every Black artist's work out there is for that, but I definitely hope that's what I'm doing, especially since I love to focus on people. And I feel like because my art usually is about that, those are conversations I can have with my artwork. I definitely can see that some people's like, well, maybe they're talking about humanity or larger issues. But I get the comment all the time that most people who see my artwork, they automatically ask me, is that a picture of you? And it's accidental. I somehow or another in a lot of my pieces apparently have put parts of myself into it that I don't see. But most people who see my paintings, they'll tell me, it's like, I thought that was a portrait of you for a second there. And I kept asking myself, like, why is that? Like, I'm not even doing that on purpose. But I feel as if all art is a bit of a self-portrait, whether it is an actual portrait of you or not, you're saying something. It's our way of using our voice, and whether that's intentional or not. And so when someone asks me, is Blackness in your art? I'm like, whether I want it to or not, yes, it is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, Christina, I love this. So, another question that I have for you is that I noticed, like, what you said about, I guess, Black artists is so true, especially like, I guess, ones that are more like local or regional. I think about maybe like 6 years ago or so, because it's before I even had, it might be 7 years ago, and I was like just stalking you on Instagram, and I was like, who is this amazing person, that was doing this thing, and she's doing this awesome stuff, and she's local, and I just was just stalking you, and I was just seeing like the work that you were putting out, and you were just so consistent, like just putting out stuff, and I want you to talk about maybe the role that social media has played in your art career. Does it influence you? Does it have an impact in your trajectory? Like, and just how that whole thing works. And if there are people who are like in the arts that don't really use social media, like what kind of tips or feedback do you have for any of that?
That one hurts me right there. They're not on social media. Whew. You're gonna get me all embarrassed on the internet. Well, I'm gonna throw my siblings under the bus with me, since you know all of us. We're a pack of nerds. We'll tell you, right? Anyone who wants to meet us, that we watched Sailor Moon. We were on Gaia Online when that was a thing. I had Digimon. I used to feed my nerds at the end of the day.
Come on, somebody.
I can't hide that. So I guess to me, that's where I got this idea of, just because I didn't have a platform in Lynchburg at first, of why I was so comfortable with, like you mentioned before, it's like I met someone in Greece who was able to have a conversation, who loved my work. I've been able to talk with people in Korea. I've made friends in Canada, Alaska, California. I had sold pieces around the world. I sold art to an astronaut. That's mind-blowing. I mean, those are some of the moments that just stick out to me, that I was just like, this is never going to happen, yet they did. And I feel like what they did is they gave me perspective that you can't just expect to meet everyone who might have something in common with you in a city as small as Lynchburg. I'm going to start here, but you got to be willing to be like a tree and branch out. And I feel like social media is definitely one of the ways for branching out that everyone should be taking advantage of, because you never know who you might meet. And it just comes back to the fact that I'm talkative, which I keep getting told is very unusual for an artist to be so social. But that's my favorite part. It's getting to share. It's getting to talk. about the work, because I feel like, I'm definitely thinking about a lot when I make my artwork. So there's plenty for me to share. I'll be sipping tea in front of my artwork for certain, but I definitely feel like you're missing out. I don't know if it's completely necessary, because I know some artists who they go the outdoor markets and they're successful in other areas. But I feel like after growing up in Lynchburg and being shut out of a lot of art communities at first, that I was encouraged by a lot of people on social media, and they were just from such faraway places. Me and FedEx are buddies at this point. I always tell people, you might not catch me at a plate, at a like a table downtown or anything like that. And I'm starting to, but definitely when my career got going, I definitely have to thank everyone I've met and make connections through, because social media definitely, they throw you right out there and you never know who might see your work. And it's just awesome with everyone you can meet through it. Definitely be careful. But I can say I'm definitely glad it's there, because most artists will tell you it's just like, I don't find that many people have the exact same work or kind of know what I'm talking about in my community. And you go on these forums and things, and you can ask a question on Reddit and things, and you just find a plethora of people who are talking about exactly what you're thinking about. So I definitely think if you are an artist starting out, that it's something to consider, because you might not be what everyone wants to buy in your community, and buying's not always the motivation behind making artwork. So I know that's why I sought some Instagram. Of course, likes are nice, but I prefer comments or someone to tell me what they think honestly about my work. So you can't always just readily do that. But with social media, you can just take your phone out, take a picture, post it, and then bam, people saw it. You don't have to end up in a gallery to start getting feedback.
Now let me say this, Josh. See, she's cooking fire, Josh. She's cooking with fire.
That's why I'm back here just taking out. I got a notebook.
Listen,
this is a master class right here.
listen. So I wanted you to touch on something that I know you and I have talked about in our own personal conversations, right? Like I can like say this since I'm like now in my 30s and I'm on the other half of the 30s where I'm a lot closer to probably 40 than 30 at this point. You're not in the same boat, but I
You don't look that age at all. I don't know why you front yourself like this.
But one of the things I would love for you that we talked about in our own times was kind of like the challenges of integrating right into like the local art scene. And more than how that has gone, what I would like to know is how has the challenges from trying to integrate or like opportunities not being presented to you or I or like people like us necessarily in the same ways, how have those things help to shape you as an artist? How have those things help to shape you as a person? Because I think that it can be kind of traumatizing, right? When you're like doing your best and somebody else is like, we're all doing our best and we're all equitably, reasonably solid, right? Nobody's producing crap. Like everybody's producing quality work. And then it's like, you feel like you're like overlooked, passed by, overlooked, or they go, oh, can you come help me assist this, but not like lead in this? And I know we've definitely experienced that. And so I want to know, like, how did you handle those things? And what kind of fueled you to like not give up when, those assistantships kept happening instead of leadership appointments?
And I think it comes back to honestly what I was talking with Joshua about with my informal way of becoming an artist and being self-taught, even though if you talk to most artists, that's actually the common way most people got into art. They didn't pay, or they went to college and they were already an artist. They had started learning beforehand, and they definitely couldn't afford no $150, $200 classes to get started. So I feel like if you have that entrepreneur spirit, that self-taught spirit that I got from my mom, just kind of made me not expecting opportunities in a way, especially since they start off pretty early. They're already like, Madge, you got curly hair. So I feel like I already had low expectations and wasn't expecting anyone to give me a handout on it. I definitely feel like that makes you either completely defeated or you start aiming for the higher ground and say, well, that's fine, moving right along. And that's not a Biden statement. I'm just saying, moving forward. You can get beaten down really hard here in America. And I definitely feel as if it's toughened my skin. not made me think I was wrong. It just meant, okay, so maybe not for you, but somebody. I said, I'm just going to keep working because I love this work and I know it means something. So I definitely, ooh, I'm going to rant on this one. I'm trying to curb myself right now. I got to pause my words about to come right now. But no, I definitely feel as if you start making them. Like we had, what was it, before Craigslist just needed to go downhill. You know, you started posting ads. You had to start putting yourself out there first. Give yourself a chance. And I definitely feel like that's advice that I wish some people had spoken more to me. I say it more to my students. I probably could tell you they're drowning in hearing me say that. But it was definitely something very important because I had to tell myself this is of value and not shortcome myself into thinking I didn't have a good product or service to sell. So when no one hired me, I made a business. When no one wanted my artwork, you know, I just went online and said, here it is, and say who would want it somewhere else. And I've just kept going at it. So that's why I always tell people, you know, when I became a teacher, it started with my students found me, not the other way around, because I never really saw some openings or someone offering me a position to teach, or they weren't really trying to offer you the full position. They wanted you to come occasionally. But then that right there told me, I was like, why would you want me on the occasion if I'm not any good? Wouldn't that hurt what you're trying to do? Wouldn't that stain the students to have somebody who doesn't have anything of value come one time? And that's when you started getting the kind of the gist of it, that you did have something worth of value. They just did not want to let you, they didn't want to validate what you had. So I definitely feel like, you know, some self-confidence boost right there, but that's what pushes you into making a business these days is all these people are like, I love your work. I even, and Michelin, this is what I'm trying to curb my words, or when we saw people stealing your work and it's identical and they said yours wasn't worth it, then you catch them taking the exact same thing. Woo, that fuels a fire for you. And I definitely feel like that's why I was like, I really was validated after that. So, oh, you just don't want me to get any credit. And that's what it really came down to. So I definitely always tell people, it's like, don't immediately assume that what you have isn't worth anything. You have to be the first person to put value behind it and then put it out there and see who comes to you and not the other way around. And I've met some incredible people because I had the patience to wait for the right people to find my work. So that way I have the great opportunities I have today. But I definitely think I had to be a little patient. There's definitely a lot of pouring of coffee and things like that in my studio. But I definitely feel as if, you know, the plan changes. You have to be flexible because if you have just that one plan or plan B, you better have a C, D, E, F, G, F to get for years like 2020. And 2021 is just going to be more soup. So I definitely think if you're, especially if you're an artist out there, that don't shortcome yourself and say like, because this one thing failed. I know plenty of people who had to close down a business and they jumped right open with another one.
You better preach this sermon.
And I don't want to go too long because we got to get to the mural. But my thing about this idea of Black support in the arts, because we talked last week a little bit about, you know, like when there's a concert on television, we will go. If it's a Beyonce, we will go. But like when it's homegrown, we don't really see the value. What does Black participation in art look like to you now, and how can Black people better support art that comes from people that are around them and add to that value?
I feel like I always tell people it doesn't start with money, and I feel like I'm hoping I'm saying that enough. It didn't start with money. It actually started completely without. It was the lack of confidence. It was the lack of self-love you saw people had for themselves. I saw a lot of young women and young men, parents alike, and teachers who seemed angry about something, angry with themselves, angry at the way they looked. And they really gave like this really like, I'm ashamed of my identity. Which is probably why it became such a strong push for me, because I wanted to be proud of mine. And I knew it was like worth something. So I definitely feel like with art, and I feel like I've already kind of said this with the whole Blackness thing, and it really comes back around to that's something very important to have. Is it's as simple as sharing. It's as simple as buy my art. Don't just say it's good. Like if I see you in the store buying a print of an artist you don't even know, and my work's cheaper, but you'll go to Pier 1 for $150, but my work's not worth 20 or even $50. That's the stuff you got to call out amongst your family, your friends, and your community, and it starts local. That you see people throwing money at I don't know, Beyonce and everything else, and $250 on a concert ticket, but then they come to your plays and stuff and they say 15, $20. Like, that's robbery. And I'm just like, what do you think it takes to keep a small business running? I'm like, they don't want to invest. I've heard so many people tell me, it's like, oh, I'm not investing in it. I said, and that's the problem. That's the T of the issue right there. We're right here. And it was as simple as you sharing a meme. You could have shared my business post. That maybe you didn't have the money, but you had the people and you had the button. You just click it. It's free. It always kills me when I get somebody like, what you could have done to support your Black local artist. It's free stuff, I promise you. When you thought of an art position and you didn't suggest my name, you had to go online and look down 500 names to remember that you know somebody who can fit that job. And see, y'all got me, right? Y'all got me heated on that one. I'm trying to be honest right now. And I do that for my friends right now. They post a sale, share it. You got the eyes. You got people's ears. They trust you. So when you give a referral, it counts for something. You've got to do that. It just breaks my heart when I see a business close that didn't have to. Or when you see someone who has something so great that everyone's like liking it underneath, but then you're like, so why didn't you go to the class? Why didn't you attend? Why didn't you share it? Why didn't you tell your friend, hey, I know you're going to like Kinetics on the other one, but there's actually a local gym that's right around the corner from you that would have opened up the doors and you would have been back home within less than 5 minutes too. I'm not trying to put down corporates tonight. I ain't trying to do that, but it just breaks my heart when you see things closing down that are right around the corner for people and they'll hop on a highway, take an exit to the same thing from someone they don't even know. And they got a friend right there that they really could have supported.
And that goes back to,
free.
And not even just, but that's a lesson learned, right? There's hope for a better, for people to change. Because I think that's born in us, or not born in us, I'm sorry, not born in us, but taught to us. That this is where you go to Walmart, get what you need. Oh, go get you a burger down at McDonald's instead of going to mom and pop, instead of going down here and getting a painting from Pier 1 or from Hobby Lobby, go to Christina. Christina did. And so maybe that's a lesson in building tighter knit communities like my grandma had. Like go down to auntie's house and go get some sugar, or go down to grandma's house, get some flour. And in a place like Lynchburg, I don't even know my neighbors, So I think there's hope for us to know. Now we know that Christina Davis makes art, and y'all can go check out her Facebook page. So even for me, that's a lesson too. How can I better support the people that are around me? So that's really good stuff.
I feel like as a country girl and a little bit of a nerd, and having a big family and that self-love that they put in you, that you got the power and that strength I got from my mother. And I can't thank her enough, because you're not grateful for it when you're a kid, but after so many years and becoming a mom and a teacher too, I definitely can tell people like that was invaluable and it was free to give. So when anyone asks me, I'm like, it really just starts right there. It starts with just building up that brand. It starts with having your family. I mean, I'm in business with my husband. I'm in business with my cousin. I'm in business with my sister right here. If I think of something, I'll share it. I can't be great at everything, but that doesn't mean I don't know somebody who is. And it hurts my heart when I see all these people are just like, I don't know any artists. And I'm like, they blatantly will tell you the truth right there. And that one just gets me. But I definitely feel like, especially like on my mural, that Black Girl Magical is a huge statement, because everyone was like, what mattered? What was a big moment in your life? And that one was big. That was a huge self-identity moment, because I was going for a crisis. Like a lot of African Americans will tell you, I stopped relaxing my hair and I had enough. And it wasn't because I can't have straight hair. It was, I can't look like me though. And we had girls bleaching your skin. And I can tell you right now, Walmart had at least 15 lightening products that I remember as a teenager getting offered to me. So, when I get people like, I don't know what you're talking about. There's no passive aggressive messages out there against African American women. I'm like, You just not looking and you're not listening, because I saw them everywhere. And I feel like, they started the fight and I'm just here for the fire at this point. So I definitely, whatever's like what inspires you, and especially as a mom and as an aunt, that I feel like I have a duty, I have a job to do with that, especially because if I'm not going to pick this fight, who will? Who's going to pick that fight for my daughter? I don't want her having to pick that fight, but I feel as if, that's why it's really important to include your Blackness into your artwork, because it should be there. It's not a fret. It's not an insult. It's not anything that should have been hidden in the first place. And it's definitely not everything, but it starts with that, because I feel as if that's where you get people listening. And, especially moving past it. I also told someone else, like, I feel as if this is an ancient old argument we're fighting against that I would have thought it's been gone. But when I get friends, even like in other countries, saying, you guys are really still fighting that same fight, though. And someone it hadn't gone anywhere because people were silent. They didn't have a conversation about it. And I feel like it just starts with a simple thing, again, free, talking about it and getting it out there so it's normalized and not something we have to fight against.
And on that subject of the fight, because that's real, even looking at a post is a fight today, right? That can take a lot out of you and cause a lot of trauma. We had a question from the audience. How can the art that we produce help release some of that collective trauma?
I'm glad they clarified on that, because I definitely feel like artists are getting rid of trauma. It is therapeutic to make art. I definitely would feel like as if most people are doing it because they're getting something like that out of it. And makes us happy. It's something joyful, something to really get that stress out. But collectively, I feel like that's why I started doing public art. You definitely have art in my studio and things, and some people may never see it, and that's fair. But this one, you can drive by, you can see it. And I just told someone else they needed to see it, because we're here too. Not that no one else is, because don't get me started on All Lives Matter. That's a fire to fuel right there. I said, like, but if it did, why is it such an issue when you see me, though? Because that's the only comeback I can always think of whenever I see those words. If all lives really mattered in this country, then why is it just one way? Why is it offensive when someone says their life's different from you and you feel the need to try and water it down, to dismiss it, to not have to acknowledge it, or it doesn't need to be included, or that's doing too much, or that's too much extra work? It shouldn't be. It should be completely as easy as picking out a church if you wanted to, or not going to church. It really should be that simple of a statement. But I feel as if the one thing that art can do is help normalize things, that sometimes people won't, they need to have the last word, and they might not let you finish a thought or a statement. And art, I feel like I was able to say so many things with a single portrait. And I knew that from my smaller pieces. And I was like, what if we could just get one big one up there that you drove by and it made you think, in a single hashtag? And that single hashtag just made people ask questions and follow up of, well, what's Black Girl Magic? Is that something to do with Beyonce? I had a lot of references to that one and everything, but it starts with just putting the imagery out there, and hopefully that just started a conversation about it. So I definitely think art, especially public art, helps normalize a lot of conversations, or maybe help them to be more comfortable about speaking about them, because it's right there and it's like, oh, I didn't know we had an African American woman like portrait. I knew we had so many other ones, but we have this in Lynchburg. This is in Atlanta, Georgia. And I feel like, especially when People Magazine covered it, that was their top thing. They were just like, we realized this is a big deal for Lynchburg. I mean, everyone was calling me. It was from Texas, DC, huge art communities. They were from New York, and they were talking to me from Atlanta. They have art. They got plenty of it. They were just like, how is this like the first time they're seeing something like this in your city? You feel like there's more of it. But I tell them, it is a big deal for us to have that. I tell them, you're right. I would have to drive out of the city to get this. But why? My community deserves this. So, I definitely hope other artists definitely take that up too, that, hey, I definitely have like a business, and I teach in places, and I travel, and I love to do that, and I encourage it. But give your community something too, because I definitely feel as if it is helping. And it's definitely helping to heal that collective trauma if you do put out some work that has absolutely nothing to do with gaining a penny.
So let's
it helps mark history and help to start something fresh.
I want want people to be able to see an image of your work because they may not have seen it. Like we're just assuming everyone who's tuned in has seen it. But I think there we go. Here it is. Here you are next to your piece, I guess, from earlier this year. So I would love it if you talk about um, your inspiration for this piece and maybe what your process was, not just coming up with it but executing it as well.
Oh, the process. Wow. Honestly, practice makes perfect comes to mind. I'm always telling kids art is just like music. Practice is what gives you speed. And I pulled this one out of the hat, and my own husband was like, I'm surprised you haven't done a mural since I had my daughter. I had to step back. This is not something you do when you're pregnant or you just had a baby, for certain. Don't climb on no ladders, pregnant women. Don't do that. I waited until afterwards. So I definitely told people I had been out of the scene for a minute. With her just being 2, so I was just getting fresh into it. And who would have thought I would have done something like this? Like the first piece out of the hat was just like this, and it definitely was like me just kind of getting back in touch, and I just went for it. I was just like, I don't know how I'm gonna pull this off. It's hot, it's 90 degrees out here. I'll see what I can do. And I just got up 5 a.m. in the morning and just bam, went for it. And it just kind of just started flowing. I just wanted something that was going to feel like an outreach piece, a piece that said something about me. But I definitely love murals that you can take pictures with, murals that you can stand and interact with. And I knew that was our goal from the start. And I was just like, I just need an idea, a simple theme. And I just picked Black Girl Magic. I just wanted something that was going to be something I could be proud of, something my daughter was going to see, my students were going to see, and something that was definitely a piece of myself inside of the work. And I definitely wanted to make sure, yes, my Blackness was showing in it, because as a mixed girl, I do get a lot of people like, you're not a real Black girl for some reason, because you're not dark enough, or because they have like this envisionment, I guess, of what an African American authentic woman looks like. So I definitely wanted to put a woman of color up there for certain. And I wanted to show all that you can gain from being that. I love brown sugar. Most people tell you to use brown sugar in their cookies. It tastes better for certain. And, I just really wanted to put a little bit of some lemonade up there, because I feel like as an African-American woman, I hope people know that my story is one where I'm finding strength along the way. I hate all those references out there about women, like America's a battered woman is like a top meme right now getting shared around. And there was tons of them all summer, just referencing like we were weak or something that didn't build up your community. And I know plenty of African women in this community that love their hometown and have built it up, and past teachers and things. So I definitely wanted this piece to be something they would be proud and happy to see as well. And I definitely noticed a lot of things were going towards forest, downtown, and I grew up in Midtown. So I was really excited to put something right around the corner from the high school I went to, right around from the library I used to walk to, from Parks and Rec that I used to teach at. I wanted something in my community right in the center of where I refer to as home. So that part was also a big thrill, that I happened to have a mural that was in a convenient location like that.
Now, I have a question about process, because I saw kind of a time lapse of your work, and it seemed like there was changes over time, like maybe the earring changed and then it got small. So do you go in abstractly, or do you go in with a plan?
Abstractly. I definitely do a little bit of research, but I like all my pieces to be original. So I always tell
Mhm.
people, like, you'll probably find me got a photo of a girl from here, piece of jewelry from here. I'm a huge fan of Pinterest because that's how my brain works. If you go on any Pinterest board of mine, there's like 100 pins in a single board, and it might look crazy and chaotic,
Yeah.
but it helps me think and it helps me generate ideas. And I feel like I have an outline. Like, I want these colors. I know I want this palette. And this is the message I'm going for. Who ends up on there, though, saying the message is a complete
Mhm.
mystery to me, too. I always tell people the finished product, I didn't see it coming. I don't know what it is. I just know I'm going to stick with it until I know it's done. And especially, I feel like since I am an acrylics artist, I work with a lot of paints that dry really fast. I like applying layers. So I know in a person, you can start off with just the basic shapes, and I start getting more and more detailed as I go. But my first dilemma usually of my artwork is, I think color matters. There's a lot of emotion in the color alone. There's a lot you can feel from the color palette of things. So that's usually my first problem and my first dilemma. And so when people see it, you probably saw something scary for a minute. I had some people watching me that were just like,
What is?
are they a portrait artist? She's doing something real scary right now. That's not human.
Absolutely, and you paint lots of stuff. I've seen one of my favorites. We talked about the animals. Like I love your animals, the fur that you create. I'm just like, look at all the layers and look at all the diversity of color. Other than drawing portraits, what's your favorite subject to draw or paint? Paint.
I feel like, what that reference that I was going to be a vet when I grew up was because I grew up with animals. I love my Alaskan Malamutes that I grew up with. My dogs were life. They were like extra siblings to me. I was just like, there's my playmates. And I love growing up just seeing like a variety of things. We had owls, that flew by. There was just so much to inspire you to draw. And siblings weren't going to hold still for you to draw a portrait of them all the time. But animals might. So, they ended up being my second favorite subject matter for certain. And I definitely think a lot of people who love my work, they notice that too. They have a lot of their own fur babies and they're just like, I love the animals and chickens. Can't tell you how many chickens and cows have walked out my studio. I think they're cute too. I'm just shocked by the amount of people that really love them, like a lot.
Well, that is so dope, Christina. So, like, I wanted to something that we talked about earlier that you mentioned. You wanted to talk about the tie between like art and mental health, and I wanted you to illustrate that in your own words, and how your own artwork plays into that, or even your process or what you're thinking about when creating things.
Oof. And I feel like I already kind of said what I got from it. So I definitely will try to speak a little bit more for what I'm hoping others get from my artwork with that. And I definitely have people, especially right now, since I've been teaching online for the first time, I always tell people I never had a presence on YouTube, Twitch, or anything, or teaching through Zoom. I didn't even know what Zoom was. I'm gonna be honest, person. I didn't have a Zoom. I don't know who did before March. I was like, who's on Zoom? There's like another AOL. I was like, what is this? But that's where I was just like, that really opened up the horizons. And I had a lot of people who are nurses, people taking care of their family members, or a lot of the people taking my art classes online. And then, of course, they find my Instagram and they see more of my work. And then the people ordering my prints just said, I don't know, it's just something about those eyes. And I heard that a lot. And a lot of people just tell me there's just something so calming to watch me paint, to paint with me. And just going through the whole process. So I definitely think everyone sees something different when they're making art, but I do think art is kind of like a puzzle. You're searching for an answer, it's on the table somewhere, and you don't know which piece is going to be a perfect fit, but you're going to stick with it until you find it. And I feel like art, that's definitely how I feel a lot of my students and everyone feels about it, is it's something challenging but rewarding at the same time, because you're looking forward to finishing it and getting that complete piece. And it takes your mind off a lot of things. I'm seeing people in galleries just staring at one painting in a museum because it meant that much to them. So I feel like, one of the things with the art, that is an honor to be able to do that for somebody else. I've had people who've bought a portrait and they saw this whole story that I did not have. I'm not a writer, but they had it for me. And they tell me a whole story about my own artwork. And that's just magical to me that artwork can do something like that for people, especially on an emotional level. When someone's like, this cow just seems familiar. This takes me back home. This painting, really connects the dot. Or especially when I do a portrait for somebody, whether they're here or not here, and you just get from them just how the painting made them come alive, how you captured their character. Or I love the use of color in this, and I feel as if this might be why some people love painting so much more than photographs. And not to diss on photography, because I'm taking Christmas photos this weekend because I love it, but I definitely feel as if this is probably why people are still commissioning art to this day. I always get asked, people still do that? And I was like, yeah. Especially in art, like I mentioned before, it's like, you go to a museum and stuff, art, and especially if you have your portrait painted, it gave you a sense of importance. It meant you were someone worth honoring. And it has so much meaning like that in our family. And so I grew up, with that kind of thoughts and compliments getting said around me when it comes to art. And so, it's lovely to be able to say someone owns my piece and feels the same way about it, or hearing, like I said, original stories that I didn't write about my own artwork. or being able to do someone's artwork for their first music album or their first book. All of those just, I don't know, I'm just completely thrilled and honored to do it whenever I can. And it's probably because of the emotional aspect that so many people get from art.
And the reason why I like talking to you, because the first time I talked to you, I was like, well, how did I not know Christina Davis? How did I not meet the? Because everything you say is it's not only wisdom, but it's because you've been through a lot. And because you've been through a lot, I think that brings the joy out of what you're talking about. Like you're just excited to do photo shoots, and you're excited to paint. Now you do a lot of work in the community. Not only do you sell your work, but you teach on several platforms. You teach at the academy. So in other arts, you teach homeschool children. I think you even have your own platforms like paint nights and date nights and all that stuff. Tell us about that, and then tell us about your links, because I know some people need to get on them right
Oh
now.
yes, and please, I feel like this comes back to what you're saying about not using social media. I'm like, where do you put all that information out so that people can find it? I
Yeah,
told you before. I think a lot of people even notice that Euros are going straight to social media. You can type in a .com, and it's a forwarding link to someone's social media pages, which is just shorter to send you that way, or getting on Bitly and there's these short links to everything. Um, and I definitely feel like this year it probably skyrocketed the amount of people who are watching me paint as well as taking classes from me online. And a lot of sites, like I told someone else, like people with like paint night companies like Game Maker and them made these marketing things where just like, hey, this artist is teaching online right now. So if you're looking for someone while we're shut down who teaches online until we open again, go to her. We had a lot of businesses who were willing to do shout outs like that. So I started posting classes on my Facebook page. So it was like Artist Christina Davis was the simplest thing I could do because I know people refer me by name. So I don't have any fancy names or nicknames just yet. But it's the fastest way of seeing what I'm up to, especially people who follow me on Instagram. They're like, oh, I love this painting. Are you teaching it? And I'm like, yes, I am. Or I am now because you said so.
yeah.
But I definitely felt like, even with getting on Zoom and finding like a platform like that was just like amazing. And I've also encouraged a few other friends to jump on it. OutSchool is another great website that wanted children's classes for more people who were at home. They were just like, I want my kids still taking music, art, and yoga lessons from me, maybe. So I just hopped on it, and I felt
Yoga. You do yoga?
No, but I was taking some though.
Oh, okay. I was like, come on now, come on now.
Advertising, I'm like right next to them, but I feel like it's probably because somebody's just like lining up classes all day. But I definitely feel like some people during quarantine, especially, they explore things they probably never had time to do before, including myself. There was so much that went online. You could even do like, what was it, making beer from home with beer kits and stuff. It's a crazy amount of things you could do. But I definitely felt like social media had its strong points of this. What do you do when you have that many different kinds of links? You flood Facebook. And so I was like, I noticed all of my pages just went up these last few months because when someone asks us, where can you go? And I'm like, type in Artist Christina Davis. And every time someone partners up with me, every time I'm part of a fundraiser, every time I'm doing a live free class, anytime I'm doing a class of Yaymaker, any of them online, I am flooding Facebook with links to it so people can click on them. So
let me ask this.
Strength.
So you're Artist Christina Davis on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And then on Instagram, are you still Artist Christina Davis?
Oh, yes, indeed. Make it simple.
And is there any other platform that people should be able to find you at or on?
Oh yes, like for example, with my other partnership too, it's like you can find all my online classes, and you can actually type my name in, and I think I have a link I'm sharing right now. But you can also find me through like Yaymaker and all the rest of them. If you type my name in, I feel like I'm Google searchable at this point. I should be. I feel like you could probably type in Artist Christina Davis, and that's probably the next way I'm gonna flood the internet is people Google searching it. Then I definitely try to post as many of my platforms as possible with my teaching schedule when it allows for it, because I definitely enjoy still teaching in person. Spiking on that, I love teaching at the academy on occasion for my kids at Montessori, who are amazing, and I miss them so much, and I'm so glad I'm back with Onward too, with the homeschooling op, and they're a great nonprofit as well. And that's one of the things that's really been great is never really thought I was going to be part of so many nonprofits, but that's what happens, I guess, when you're volunteering. I have amazing friends who support CASA who are just advocates for children in so many different ways. And I'm just really honored that I get to help them and be working at the YMCA and stuff. And that's what I was doing even this summer. So during this quarantine, we still managed to get art to so many kids through a lot of nonprofit work. So they definitely are always giving me shout outs as well. So I know I definitely see some social media traffic my way from all of them too.
So let me ask you this. What is your Cash App so people can bless you in your pocketbook? Because you do a lot of volunteering. I know, like even for the mural, like you didn't get paid for that. Like you weren't commissioned like how a lot of people get commissioned to do public art. It wasn't like you were commissioned to do something for free. It was more like an exchange of work. But I want people to be able to bless you financially if they hadn't had the opportunity before, because 'tis the season to give. So what's your Cash App?
I just shared that link for that one too.
Awesome.
And as well as, like I said, I'm just starting off on YouTube, and so I don't want to get no hate for having only less than 50 videos, but I'm like flooding as much as I can on them. But I didn't even know there was a thing called Ko-fi out there too. And I have that for giving artists a cup of coffee. And I'm like, what a great cause. I was like, I heard this a few years ago. Like, my sister signed me up for it. I was like, get out of here. There's a website that literally just says, buy your local artist that you see working hard a cup of coffee. I mean, it could transform into Joe Beam's gift cards. I'll accept those too.
Hey.
See me, I'm not that picky.
Oh, come on now.
Now, everybody
no, I definitely feel as if
yeah.
I definitely feel as if though I do have a lot of work that there's no price tag behind it, because I just didn't feel like waiting for somebody to put the money behind some causes that I already deemed as worthy. And I definitely remember being a kid where everyone's like, okay, you have the money to pay for this art opportunity, for this art class. So I'm really honored that even though we're working usually with fairly limited budgets, even when we do get funding, they're not significant budgets, that I'm grateful I'm working with artists where we get creative. We're on our Pinterest. We find crafts that really can fit to blow these kids' minds, because it really does start that young. And if I can inspire that creative entrepreneur spirit in them that young, I'm hoping to carry that somewhere with them, that really blossoms into a blessing for them as well. So I definitely don't need to be completely, paid, but please do if you can, because it definitely helps with supplies. I always tell people quality matters with art supplies. I do not use Crayola crayons or anything like that. And so with my kindergartners, I definitely bless my kids with the best I can possibly get whenever I can fit into the budget. So the bigger the budget, the better I'll do for my kids if I can.
Absolutely. And speaking of your kids, and I know we're coming to a stop, but I know that there are some parents that might be out there, some kids who are interested and curious, but they've made a lot of excuses of why they should not. And everybody does that. We trick ourselves out of the blessing, right? What can you say to a parent or to a kid who is about to make the choice to take a class with you or with anybody? Can you convince them why they should just go ahead and do it?
I feel like because if any artist can do you any kind of favor, it's to tell you the truth. We're people who fall down and we get right back up. So yes, you're going to make mistakes, and it's within those mistakes that you learn the most. It's in every mistake I made. Every time I teach, it's because I've failed 1,000 times at something, but I did not stop until I got it right. And because I have all these nifty tips and tricks, and I have all these stories of how I got to where I'm at with my art career, that's why I sound like I'm wise and I sound like I know a lot, but it's really just about I got comfortable with my mistakes. And I realized that there's some wisdoms, there's some tips, there's some glimmers, some highlights that are worth sharing. And I feel like as a teacher, that's one of the most exciting things I always tell kids. No, I know you can do it because I said the same thing, and yet here I sit capable, and I never knew what I was capable of until I tried. It all starts with trying. And when anything feels hard, that's because you're teaching your brain something new to do. And that's the best thing in the world. It's like climbing a mountain. Yes, you're breathing hard, but it's worth it when you get to the top and you see that view. So definitely, if you haven't tried anything at all and it's completely new and you're just scared of that feeling, embrace it. Get comfortable with it. And if you can give that gift to your kids, I promise you that's going to stretch far beyond art. Because I know for me, that stretched into math, science. Is probably why, as Michelin mentioned, my siblings, they are just as talented as me. They are so smart. They just dive into everything with that attitude of like computers, tech. I mean, it just stretches animation. One of my sisters, I cannot wrap my head around that one. Painting digitally and stuff. We are such an inspiration, honestly, to each other. So I definitely tell people, like, that's within my family. So I had to assume, I was just like, if some other kid also got to share in that and have it, there's tons to benefit from. When they took arts out of schools, they did your kids a disservice. I promise you that. STEAM Renaissance men, I mean, right there. Men who love math, science, who love music, art, and theater was right behind it. It was never separated. All the great men knew that stuff went hand in hand, and we started taking it out, and I don't know why. Arts, if anything, one of the top lessons my middle schoolers would say is like, she's always talking about science in art class. I don't know why, but she's always breaking stuff down, telling us how something's made, making us estimate. I was like, this is art class. It's supposed to be just doing like some random stuff and throwing paint around and everything. I'm like, no, it's called artwork for a reason. Work.
Come on now. So it is worth it. It is worth the work. It's worth the investment, I believe. I think if you want to do something, as I'm learning as on the other side of the aisle, like, why am I saying that? Like, it goes together, like you said, it goes together, but the investment is worth it.
Yeah, and I just told my last kids over art camp at the end of all my art camps. I told someone else they were like, I had some parents walk in, it's like, it's Etsy in here. And I said, exactly. And please keep saying that. Don't let these kids think they got to wait till they're my age to open up a business.
Come on.
Encourage them to do it now.
Come on.
Please do it. Stop waiting, because that was the problem. I feel like worlds away from where I should be at my age, because I'm wondering if I had started 5 years sooner and I had just taken the plunge to just do what I'm doing now and really been pushing a little bit harder, how much more would I've accomplished by now? And I just feel with my kids, I'm just like, you guys are my future. I feel like if I can get you all started early, understanding you don't need to wait. It's not about the dime. It's about putting yourself out there saying, hey, my name is this. I can do this, and it's amazing, and you should want it too.
Listen, Christina, I know it's about 7:02, so I don't know where the time is gone.
And you people, y'all keep asking. I told you to stop it. Y'all got all these fire fueling conversations. Y'all need to ask simpler questions. Where are you from? What's your name? You guys gonna save time by saying the simple stuff.
I just wanted just to say, I love you. I'm proud of you. I'm just so inspired by you. I was inspired by you before I met you, and I'm more inspired by you every day when I see you out here hustling. You like the art James Brown. You're the hardest woman in the arts. You know what I'm saying? You're always involved, and the community is behind you, and we support you. We love you. I just wanted to get us to go ahead and thank everyone for tuning in this evening for this conversation. Thank you so much to my co-host Joshua Carter for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much to Leslie King and Black and the Bird. Also, once again, shouting out Miss Janice for winning the Lottie Payne Stratton Award, as well as Blackwater Brandon. Thank you all so much for supporting this.
Yes, thank you all.
We hope that you all have a fantastic night. Take care.